Hey, welcome back to another episode of the Good Advice Podcast. Hey, whatever you're doing today, however things are going, I hope things are trending on the up and up for you and your business. We're going to be talking today about some things that you can use to really, frankly, wow your customers, including some of the things you should probably not be doing. This is a topic that I've loved to talk about on the show, and unfortunately, we've got just more stuff to discuss about it. Whenever it comes to sales, whenever it comes to marketing, managing your business, what have you, we like to boil these things down to, frankly, some really simple things that are easy to follow and anyone can do. However, not everyone is doing these things, which means that you can really stand out by doing them yourself. Before we get into any of that, of course, we have a quick word from one of the amazing businesses who sponsor the podcast. Listen to this. We'll be right back shortly. Talk soon.
We talk to all sorts of business owners on the podcast, and one of the most common trends is business owners who just, for whatever reason, didn't fit in the corporate environment. A lot of entrepreneurs are seeking something, they're seeking an answer, and they're trying to figure out the simple question of, how do I fit in the world? And more importantly, is there a way to make a living that doesn't involve the traditional 9-to-5 job? One of the biggest pieces of advice that I give to entrepreneurs is, hey, you got to learn about who you are, what drives you, your motivation. That's why I want to tell you about this book, Your Turning Point, 33 Questions for Transformation. I love the impact I've been able to make through Good Advice and the Good Advice podcast, but that would not have been doable without taking an honest assessment of who I was today and who I wanted to be tomorrow. Go to the website, the33questions.com, and get yourself a copy of Your Turning Point by Stephen J. Blank, and let's continue on this road for transformation together. Again, the website is the33questions.com, where you can buy your book today.
So it's no secret, if you've listened to the podcast long term, you know some of the themes that come up on this show, including, how do we come up with different topics? What are the things that are really top of mind for me? And one of the things that I've talked about is when it comes to creating content for the podcast, it's often something that I see on the news or I see trending or what have you. And I'm like, okay, we got to talk about this. One of the things we talked about just a few weeks ago was heated seats and BMW's heated seats program and just the craziness around this. We've talked about Taco Bell on the podcast, which I don't know if I mentioned this, by the way. I don't think I did. But Taco Bell is on my no-no list currently because I don't even actually have a no-no list. And now that I said it, I quipped it just in the moment right there. It kind of sounds a little weird. But when I think about Taco Bell, I think about, I know what I'm getting. And currently they're not in a great place because I went to the drive-thru, I got my regular meal, and it wasn't great. I'll go and tell you, it wasn't great. It's a meal that I'm capped in consistency. I always get the same thing. When I find something I like, I get the same thing every time. I get the same coffee. I get the same meal. I'm going to be meeting someone at Wright's Barbecue next week. I'm going to get the same thing that I always get because the way that I see it, if you're spending $15, $16, $17 somewhere, you want to know that it is good, right? My wife, she's the more ambitious one. She's a little bit more of the wild one. So she likes to get something different every time. And you know what? Not to judge her, but I'm just saying there's a lot of times where she is full of regret after her meal. And I'm like, you know what? I'm satisfied because I knew what I was getting. But that's besides the point. Taco Bell, though, I got myself a meal there, my regular. It was $17 for a quesadilla and a cheesy gordita crunch. And it kind of blew my mind. $17. I thought I could have gotten a CJ's burger for $17. But anyway, neither here nor there. We talk a lot about wowing your customers, giving your customers a fantastic experience. And by the way, it's really fun hearing you guys who you listen to a podcast episode and we chat out in the wild world of networking, or we see each other and you're like, hey, I heard that episode that was really funny, or I was someone asked me to come speak to her small group of sales professionals, and we were swapping stories, and the person who invited me was like, hey, tell that story that was on the podcast about, and then I told the wrong story. She was like, okay, it wasn't that story. And I was like, oh, okay, this other one. So it's always fun for me. I appreciate you guys listening, and we got a couple of stories today to share with you. And here's what I'll say, by the way, the podcast is growing like crazy. It's really fun to see the podcast get a lot of traction and a lot of attention, and it's nice. It's nice after coming up on 5 years of the show that it's getting so much traction. And what I'll say is, if you're loving the podcast, if you enjoy the podcast, if you find help from the podcast for your business, I'd ask you to do two things. I'd ask you, first of all, hey, go to my Google page, my Google business page, Good Advice here in Northwest Arkansas, and leave me a review on my business, Good Advice, talking about how much you enjoy the podcast, how much it's helped you. And secondly, tell a friend about the podcast. Those things together really help me continue to do this professionally, as opposed to, I don't know, getting I was about to say get a real job, but I work way more doing this than I ever would a quote real job. So anyway, that's my shameless plug, I guess. But we're going to talk about some stories today. We're going to talk about, some things that people are doing that aren't quite lining up. And one of the things I want to call back to is a previous episode. I guess this would have been maybe a month ago. I did an episode talking about the power of a thank you note. In fact, I have it right here in front of me. If you're watching the video, it's actually on my desk still. I got this thank you card from somebody, and it was just a thank you card. It was one of my customers. My customers wrote me a thank you card to say, hey, thanks for doing business with me. And that goes a long way. It goes a long way to the whole point of the episode on the thank you card was pointing out that most people do the bare minimum. Most people, they don't go the extra mile to stand out with their customers. And, it's too bad. It's really too bad. Since then, I got my insurance agent sent me an email on Labor Day. It was like your typical holiday Labor Day email. But I had food poisoning, so I think I was feeling a little extra feisty. So I get like this Labor Day email that's like, our offices will be closed. Well, the email also says something like, just want you to know, it was something like, as I'm reflecting on the holiday, I want you to know how much of a valued customer you are. Well, the only issue with this was that it was an automated email. It was like a copy paste email. And so I kind of laughed thinking, this is a bit ironic. You're sending an automated email about how valued your customer is. And I just thought, what would have gone a bit of a longer way would have been an actual email. Hey, Blake, how are you doing? Hey, I've been serving you for, maybe 4 years now, 5 years now. Hey, I appreciate your business. Hey, I hope you have a great Labor Day. I don't know what your plans are, but I hope you have a great Labor Day. Like, these things take us literally only a couple of extra minutes of time to do. They don't take much for us to do them, and yet few people actually do them. We're going to continue that conversation today and talk about how can you really stand out with your customers. Now, what I'm not going to do today is I'm not necessarily going to say like, hey, do these 5 things, like go buy them a birthday card, go do this. We're not really getting into the weeds of any of that stuff. We're talking concept today. We're talking, if you are wanting to really differentiate yourself from a competitor, it's getting into a different mindset of how you engage with your customers. The good thing is that some of my best customers already think this way. And in fact, I guess they probably don't even really need me, honestly, but I guess it's kind of the whole like attracts like thing. What I will say is people who don't get this, who can't shift their mindset, not only do they have a hard time taking this piece of advice, but they have a hard time ever. It's interesting. It's like I've told this story 1,000 times, by the way. It reminds me of the guy who sold protein powder, and his average order was like, I don't know, $30 or something. Well, he had a guy this person's average order was like $200 because this guy bought protein powder for like the entire gym or like his gym buddies or whatever. And what this guy did in his $200 order was he asked the person that I was giving advice to, he asked the protein powder maker, hey, it's really annoying, like losing the little plastic scoops. Can you throw in a couple extras? Well, the guy that I was talking to, that guy was like, hey, I feel really taken advantage of. Like, this guy's trying to screw me over. Like, how dare this guy? And I was like, well, how much do the plastic scoops cost you? And he was like, 12 cents, and I'm like, what a missed opportunity. Like, are you nuts? You're not going to throw in like a dozen of these? Like, I would get everyone's name at the gym and then have them like etched into the scooper. Like, here's your official. I would actually, if it was me, honestly, if the crummy scoopers were always like 12 cents, I would put in like the $4 or $5, like a one-time loss on the order. Heck, I would do a $15 custom made, their name, their brand, whatever, metal scoop. That could be dishwash safe. I don't know the whole details, but like something that communicates quality and appreciation to this customer. Well, see, this person wasn't going to do that. Instead, he was so bothered by the ask of, what, you want me to throw in these plastic 12-cent scoops? How dare you? And that was actually the premise of our conversation hey, I'm being taken advantage of by my customer. How can I set boundaries with the customer? And so in like unpacking the conversation, I was like, no, you're not being taken advantage of. You're actually being money grubbing. You're actually being very untrusting. So my point is that people who don't understand this concept, there's usually a lot more in play there that can be hard to pull apart. All this to say, I want to continue this conversation today, and I want to talk about a couple of situations that happened just in the last couple of days on social media, and I want to share this with you. So one of them was, I don't know if it was a TikTok or an Instagram reel or what have you. One of them was a guy who was filming himself opening a big cardboard box. And I don't remember the brand of the company. I never heard of it before. But this guy had this big cardboard box on his kitchen table. And he was like, hey, everybody, so-and-so told me to open this gift in front of, to record myself opening this gift. And because they sent me some stuff to show me how much they appreciate me being a huge customer of theirs. And like, so some of the backstory here was this guy apparently like uses this company like exclusively, and I spent a lot of money with this particular company. So the company sent him some gifts. Well, I was pretty intrigued by this. I thought, ooh, yeah, this could be really cool. I wonder what the company sent them. And you may even yourself start to wonder, like, if you were going to send a customer of yours a gift of your own, your most, I mean, this is probably actually like the first, like, reframing conversation. Like, when you think about your best customer, if you've never thought about sending them something, I mean, maybe that's the first, like, of like, oh, hey, yeah, maybe you should be thinking that. But taking the question farther, though, if you were going to send your customer a gift, what would you send them? If you were going to send your best customer something, what would you give them? Well, I was pretty intrigued. I was curious. And I will say, by the way, I want to come back to my friend Damon Burton, who he's been on the podcast. He runs SEO National. He's amazing. Whenever I went on his podcast 3 or 4 years ago, no-name business owner, good advice, so tiny, right? He mailed me a cupcake in a jar, a little, it was like it was some kind of like, bougie thing, I guess. But it was a cupcake in a jar. Actually, it was 2 of them, one for me and one for my wife. And a note that was just like, hey, Blake, thanks so much for coming on my podcast. Hadn't spent a dime with him. So I'm a little biased here. I had experienced like that's, and by the way, knowing Damon years later now, that is the kind of person he is. That is how he does business. Damon, by the way, a multi-million-dollar business owner, easily $1 million+ SEO company. Incredible guy. Anyway, so that's like my, what's it called? not checkpoint, like my, you guys know what I'm talking about. It's tough whenever I'm like speaking with someone and I say 10 times, they can just jump in and correct me. But you guys, you can't talk to me. You're listening to a podcast. My reference point. Hey, thank you, random person who just said that in your car or, whatever. So that's my reference point. I'm like, okay, yeah. And again, all keeping in mind this background of wowing your customers, curating that customer experience. Like, how do you really make a customer know and like tangibly feel that working with you is different from a competitor? How do you really create that experience? It's not enough to say you have good customer service. It's not enough to be polite. And of course, I can help you with that and be prompt. And like, these things matter, but they don't create the premium customer experience. These are things that are just expected. You have to do these things, right? So getting back to the story, this guy's opening the box. He's got the box in front of him. Big, massive cardboard box. Well, there was something interesting on the box. There was the brand, the logo on the box, but there was also something else, a detail that I noticed. There were the numbers 1366 on the box, and someone had written it with like a black Sharpie. And I thought, that's interesting. It reminded me of when lots of boxes are being mailed out and like in a warehouse, and someone marks a box with like the number of the customer on the list, or, where does this go? Like things like that kind of detail is what it kind of reminded me of. So I see this number on the box, 1336. And I think that's a little odd because this person's being sent a box because he is apparently this amazing customer. Well, he opens up the box, and the first thing he pulls out is a backpack. It is he takes it out and he goes, "Whoa, a backpack." And the backpack is branded with this company. And he's like, "This is awesome." Now, the acting was great. I mean, what do I know? This guy could have been like the biggest junkie for this kind of business that, he's been waiting for the day to get the branded backpack for their company. So, excuse me. He's like, "Whoa, the backpack. This is so cool." And he's like, his kid like comes into the frame and he's like, "Hey, check it out." And the kid's like, "Whoa, yeah, Dad, you got a backpack from that company." And he's like, "I know, son. I know. I made it." And then he like goes in more and he pulls out a branded hat from the company and has the logo. He's like, "Oh, you guys gave me a hat too." And there were like a couple of other things in there. And my excitement like went, it nosedived. Here's a business that sent one of their best customers a gift for being a best customer. And they sent him a box of branded crap. That's honestly what it is. And and hear me correctly for a second here, guys. It's not that you shouldn't have branded stuff. You're missing it if you think that's what we're talking about. And by the way, it's not even that you shouldn't have branded stuff that you give to people, which that actually is part of it. We're going to get to that in a second. But like, I would hope if people really like good advice, like the Good Advice podcast, that if I ever had like a Good Advice podcast shirt, that someone would be happy to wear it. Now, for me and my style, it would have to be like something funny. Like I don't know what it would be. It would probably be something really stupid, like something like a meme or something. And it would be like, try listening to the Good Advice podcast next time. I don't know what it would be. By the way, I'm not doing it. So if it sounds stupid, it's because I haven't thought this. I like literally in this moment, I'm like pitching this idea to you guys. So you see me next week and I'm like, "Hey, have you bought my shirt yet?" So all this to say, I'm not even saying there's anything wrong with branded stuff. I'm saying you have a customer who is one of your best customers, and what you gave them as a thank you for their literal dollar being spent on you. They could have gone anywhere else, but they trusted you. They liked you enough to talk about you, to recommend other people to you, to buy from you again and again and again. And what you gave them was a backpack. a backpack that you probably bought in bulk, that you ordered in a big shipment from a distributor somewhere, and it is ultimately something that you give out to people to grow your brand. I think you're missing it if that's the way you're doing business. Now, that was one data point. This was, I think, yesterday that I saw this video, and I was like, oh, geez, okay. And like it was really funny though, because the guy was so enamored by all of it, which, you know, I don't want to presume the guy was faking it or not, but I just know if one of you guys sends me up, so you send me a backpack, I'm just gonna be honest. I'm gonna tell you straight, you know, I was gonna be honest on the podcast. I'm going to throw it away. I'm going to give it away. Actually, I'm not going to throw it away. I'm going to give it away. So save yourself the step and you can just give it away to someone else yourself. So that was the video yesterday. Another video happens today. I'm on LinkedIn. I'm doing a little content on LinkedIn. If you follow me long term, you know I love LinkedIn. I post on it all the time. I'm on it every day. It's probably the best social media for my platform. Well, there's this one person I follow. She has 600,000 followers on LinkedIn. 600,000. Now, Damon Burton, who I think's a freaking rock star, I think he has 30,000 on LinkedIn. David Breyer, who's a big branding guy, he's been on the podcast. He's insane. He has, I think, 60 or 70,000. Jackie Hermes, who's also insane. Insane's a good thing in this circuit. This probably sounds like I'm making fun of these people. Insane's a good thing, guys. All right. It's like bad. You know, they're so bad, but it's good. It's good, bad. But Jackie is an amazing entrepreneur, has a great podcast herself. She has 100,000 followers on LinkedIn. Well, this person who I was scrolling through and saw has 600,000 followers. I, by the way, let's see. I, by the way, have, excuse me. Wow. I'm getting feisty, so I'm getting tickled here. I have 2,000 followers on LinkedIn. So I'm like, yeah, there's like even the lowest person, I'm like way below that. So this person is I would say moderately bigger than my following. 600,000 followers on LinkedIn. And I was scrolling through, I saw a post that she did, and it was a video. It was a video where a mortgage company, or maybe like a lending company, had invited her to come to their office. And so she was doing, and this person at 600,000, she's like more of like a lifestyle influencer type personality. And so, you know, camera's in front of her and she's like, I can't wait to finally go to my favorite mortgage company. Woo! You know, and it's her like getting in the car and then like smiling and laughing and like, you know, going through the doors. We're here. Woo! You know, I'm by the way, I'm probably like sounding really condescending, and I'm honestly not meaning to. Like, this is just what was happening. So arrives at this mortgage company and meets the owner, and they knew each other. Like, oh, it's so good to see you. And I'm thinking like, wow, this is what great branding for this person. And honestly, probably, if I'm being really honest, I'm going to guess that this mortgage company paid this person to come to their office. I don't know. I just think about like what would a normal person do. There are a couple of like really great mortgage lenders that I know in Northwest Arkansas, but I've just never woken up and been like, man, today is the day that I'm going to go visit one of these places. And if I did, they would be weirded out. They'd be like, so you just woke up and you wanted to come visit? You know, they'd be like, do you have a hobby? Like, do you need some help? Or so like something here isn't lining up. I think it's pretty obvious. This is like basic influencer marketing. Hey, can we pay you to come out and spotlight our place? And so anyway, so this happens, but point being, you have this person, 600,000 followers on LinkedIn, coming to your place of business. Now, if this was me, I would have never paid for this anyway. But again, I'm the 2,000 follower guy. So what do I know? Right. Anytime I give advice about something and someone's like, oh yeah, I don't know about that. I'm like, well, you know, I'm also I'm not like David Breyer or any of these other massive people anyway. So you take it with a grain of salt. But so if it was me and this person, 600K followers, was coming out to my place, I would be on her LinkedIn. I would be seeing what she cares about. This is going to make me sound like such a creep, by the way, but this person's on my LinkedIn all the time. So I just know a couple of details. I know that she quit alcohol last year. And I know that she just went to Germany. The Germany detail is interesting because my wife and I went to Germany. And so when it popped up on my feed that she was visiting Germany, I thought, oh, that's cool. I love Germany. So I know I would get on there and I would see like those two details. So here's why this would be important to me. From a subtle perspective, when she came to visit, I wouldn't be like, hey, let's pop champagne. Hey, let's, it's like when we have friends over, it's like we open a bottle of wine, but I have this other couple who are friends of ours who I know that they don't drink alcohol. I know that they have not a great history with alcohol and they don't do alcohol. So I make sure not to offer them alcohol when they come over. I feel like this is just basic, right? I just try not to be like, I try to be just a normal human being, right? Well, so I'd find this out about this person and I would maybe I would get a German dessert or something to give to her and be like, we're having lunch together, what have you. Hey, I got this strudel from Germany. I don't know if that's like iconic German or not. My friend who's authentically from German, she's made strudel or a spätzle too, actually. Doesn't matter, guys. All right. If you're like a German guru here, you might be totally criticizing me. Whatever the case may be, I would do something authentically German. And I would say like, hey, I know we just went to German. I grabbed this meal, what have you. And I hope you enjoy it. I would do something small that is also very intentional to her personally. Again, this wouldn't be something big. It wouldn't be something that I think would be expensive. I would know it wouldn't be expensive. You can buy strudel for, a few dollars. But the point is that I have an opportunity to demonstrate to this person who coincidentally I am paying to demonstrate how I do business to the entire world, 600,000 people. I'm going to make sure that I'm communicating a few things about my business. So here's what happened. This person gets there, they meet the owner, they talk, they chat, whatever. Well, what ends up happening is the owner of the mortgage business says, hey, I got a gift for you. And again, I'm like, here we go. This is it. This is the cool moment. What do you give the massive LinkedIn influencer? What gift do you give them that's going to be on camera? And there was a little box. The influencer opened it and she went, oh my gosh, it's a backpack. And it was a branded backpack. Again, a branded backpack that she, I guess like slung over one shoulder and was like, yes. And I'm thinking like, there's no way she's not going to wear this. She's not going to keep it. Right. I mean, she's not, it's just funny to me. I'm like, you had an opportunity to be intentional, but you went with, kind of the same old. And I think that is my point today in today's podcast episode is we talked a couple of podcasts ago about how to be good at sales and which by the way, I don't personally think I'm really that good at sales, but I do know that I'm way better than most people at sales because I know how most people do sales. Most people do the cold DM pitch that's impersonal and they just want to make the sale and they're not interested in the relationship and yada, yada, yada. And so in that episode, I basically just said, hey, if you want to get better at sales, the bar is pretty low. You don't have to do much to be better at sales. And similarly, when we talk about standing out to your customers, the bar is low. It's low. So to stand out, to give a premium experience, to wow people, to make people think, wow, this this was truly something different. It takes a little bit of intentionality. And unfortunately, it does take more than a branded backpack. And here's really the issue with the branded backpack. The issue with the branded backpack is that it communicates, here is my opportunity for you. Here is my opportunity for me to get you to do more on my behalf by repping my branded gear, as opposed to the intentional gift, which says it's nothing about me other than showing gratitude to you for you doing business with me. Like, do you see, do you see why I described this at the start of the episode as like a mental shift? Like there comes a point where you take off the sales hat and the branding hat, and you just put on like I'm a normal dude. I am trying to be a normal human being and be a normal person. And hey, you gave me $1,000. You gave me $2,000. You gave me whatever the price is. And I just want to show you how much I appreciate that. I want to show you, hey, thank you. Seriously, thank you. You didn't have to, and not like it's interesting because like I think people are so like, I think business entrepreneurs especially are so into like presenting a persona of everything is so together that to communicate gratefulness is like this weird, like I'm undermining my authority as an expert in my field. Like I can't be too grateful because it makes me seem like I was desperate or clingy or like, so, and it's like this weird energy about it. But a normal human being is like demonstrates gratitude. They are grateful. So all that to say, the bar is very low. And yet if you can think about this, if you can find ways to be intentional with your customer, with people that, I think about my friend Brian Sexton, who does the Intentional Encourager podcast. He has the book, People Buy From People, an amazing, amazing business owner. Just business professional. Anytime I talk to him, he immediately fires off, just as we're chatting, how's Blake doing? How's Maylee doing? How's Blakely doing? Like he knows my kids' names. He's immediately bringing them up. How are they doing? What's going on? I mean, this is someone who you could not talk to for 3 months and he's remembered. It's like the Michael Scott joke where Dwight's trying to steal his customers, but Michael has like the black book of like all the details, like the personal details. It's like that, but it's in Brian's mind. Like he knows these things and thinks about these things. And it's like I had coffee with a professional, a friend of mine the other day, and I knew his kids' names. And I made sure to bring up the names of his kids. I wanted him to know that I knew the names of his kids because I wanted him to know it's not just about the transaction to me, that business is personal, that I want you to know that there's intentionality there and that I care about doing business with you. I wanted him to know that. A lot of people will just say that. They'll say, your business is important to me. It's the email, the automated email. You're a valued customer. It's when you're on hold. You've been on hold for 35 minutes with a certain cable company and they say, thank you for holding. Your business is important to us. You know what I'm talking about? It's easy to say these things. It's rare to actually go the extra mile and demonstrate them. So if you're not a fantastic salesperson, if you're not fantastic at any of this stuff, the good news is the bar is very low. If you just act a little bit more intentional, and more importantly, if you just listen. If you listen, I'm always listening to what my customers are telling me. I have a customer who she mentioned it's her 8-year business anniversary this upcoming April. That's a data point that I'm keeping in mind. It's a data point that I'm keeping in mind because when April comes, I want to be able to send her something. I have another person who it's their birthday on Saturday. They mentioned it to me a couple of months ago. This would be weird, actually. A couple months ago. Hey, it's my birthday in 2 months on this day. It was 3 or 4 weeks ago The person was like, yeah, the second weekend of Saturday is my birthday, so I can't actually go do this. And I was like, oh, okay, well, yeah, no big deal. Don't worry about it. But I made a mental note that Saturday, it's his birthday. And then as soon as we were apart, I wrote it down on my phone. And I'm going to send him a birthday text because that's a relationship that I care about. It's a relationship that's important to me. So I'm going to invest in that relationship. That only happens by actually listening to people and having a real, honest conversation with them. A lot of people aren't looking for those real relationships. They're looking to, it's like a farmer who like literally like puts their hand like in the bag of seed and then just like throws it out into the field, right? This is why I wanted to mention like the bag of crap, the bag of branded stuff that people give away at networking events. Which again, I'm not trying to knock you. I'm not trying to give you a hard time if you give these things out. But like one of the worst things that I can win at a raffle at a networking event is someone's bag of stuff, because I'm not gonna use your insurance water bottle. Unless it's like a really nice water bottle, but probably not gonna like wear your hat. Probably not gonna put the sticker on my car. These things that we think are actionable for the brand of our business, when really the real magic happens person to person. It's like there's a guy that I've been trying to get as a customer. We both love hamburgers, so we've talked a lot about Big Sexy Food here in Springdale. We've talked a lot about CJ's. I mentioned them earlier. They're not a sponsor of the podcast. Maybe I need to go to them and be like, hey, I've bragged about you guys. But, we've talked about CJ's. And so we had a great experience with Big Sexy Food. And I was like, hey, we got to go to CJ's. We got to go to CJ's. I know you love a good hamburger. We got to go to CJ's. He mentioned to me that he's going to Jamaica. So, like these are details that are not just passing over my mind. They're data points that I'm taking and keeping and holding on to, because I want this person to know that these were real conversations that we had, that they mattered to me, that I was listening, and that and again, it's really not about the detail. Like, let me be clear for a second. If I bring up Jamaica, hey, how was Jamaica? Do you think he's really going to feel wowed that I asked about Jamaica? Like there might be like a slight feeling of like, oh, cool. You remember that. Thanks. Yeah. We had a great time. Like, do you think he's going to be wowed by it though? Probably not. Like I had a guy, Steve Blair, was on the podcast, and he talked about how he loves egg and cheese biscuits from Chick-fil-A. So like as a gift for him coming on the podcast, I wanted to send him a gift card to Chick-fil-A with a card that said, hey, have an egg and cheese biscuit on me. Now, if he was to receive that, do you think he's really going to, whoa, wow? Probably not. Now there might be like a detail of like, oh, wow, that was nice. It's never about the thing, just so you can understand. It's never about the actual thing, the detail. What it is that it communicates to that person, one, how you do business, and two, more importantly, how you're different from everybody else. You are always communicating to people your values and the way you do business. You are communicating how you see your customers. You're communicating how you value your relationships. It's not about the detail. It's not about the biscuit. It's not about Jamaica. It's not about, it's not even so much about the backpack. It's you are letting someone in on an insight for this is how I do business. And it really, I guess what I want to close with is I've talked about Patrick Stewart on the podcast, who runs Apricot Lane boutique stores. We have one here in Northwest Arkansas. I met the owner actually a few weeks ago. A really nice person, former teacher, by the way. I'm a former teacher myself, so it was really cool to meet someone who also was a former teacher. Anywho, the CEO of Apricot Lane Boutiques. This store, by the way, has continued to grow despite, through COVID, many brick and mortar boutique stores shuttering. brick and mortar stores have had a tough time. Well, Apricot Lane has continued to grow. How is this possible? Well, talking with the CEO, Patrick Stewart, who came on the podcast a few years back, we were talking about his philosophy of customers. And he said, here's kind of how I see it. Most people, customer comes in and the person, the associate, whatever you want to call it, the person thinks, now what's the least I can do to get this person to buy? Now, I know people don't actually say this because it sounds really bad, but okay, I'm going to go say hello, hi, if you need anything, just let me know. Great. Okay. And then how do I get them to make the sale? And then as soon as that's done, I move on to the next person. Now, how do I have to spend my energy on the next person now? And he said, kind of how I see it, it's different than that. Instead of thinking of it as, how do I spend less time with this customer? How do I spend more time with this customer? It's these things that they seem kind of countercultural in business. They seem a little illogical. Like, how could I spend more time with someone? But that was his philosophy of business. How do I spend more time with this person rather than always looking for ways to spend less time? Again, it's less about the time. It's about the philosophy of business. How do I give and give and give to this customer to show them about the way I do business rather than looking for the quick transaction and my bottom line getting met? It's something to think about. And the sooner that you can grab onto this for your own business, you will be shocked by how your customers become raving fans. When they talk about doing business with you, how much I mentioned it earlier, this customer of mine who spent $6,000, maybe $7,000 with me so far, who wrote me a thank you card. He wrote me a thank you card saying, thank you for taking my money. Which, by the way, the first half of that was, it was even us still figuring out a lot of stuff together. That is how your customers will see you. They will spend money with you and then they'll thank you for being someone who provided this product or service that they could count on. They'll thank you for selling it to them. It's kind of a wild world, and it doesn't take much, like I've said, to accomplish it. Hey, if you have any stories of yourself, ways that you've wowed your customers, things that you do that helps you stand out with your customers, I'd love to hear about it. I love telling these stories. I love spotlighting people. The more we can tell these stories, the more we can continue to shape the right way, that we should be doing business. So all that to say, hey, if you enjoyed today's episode, what the heck are you waiting on? Click the subscribe and follow button so you can keep getting good advice wherever you are. And don't forget, we do have a Patreon. The Patreon's at patreon.com/goodadvice, where you can support the podcast for as little as the price of a cup of coffee. We also, as you notice, we have advertising on the podcast. If you want to advertise your humble business on the podcast, you can reach out at blake@goodadvicecoaching.com. And if you want some help with figuring out the right way to do business, creating that premium customer experience, I'd love to work together. I'd love to figure this out and show you some things that can really help you stand out and stand apart. Again, you can email me for more questions there. Having said that, those of you guys who support the podcast, who listen to the podcast, and even those of you who are customers of Good Advice, thank you so much for all your support and all you've done with the show. Coming up on 5 years of the podcast. Holy cow. Wouldn't have been possible without you guys being part of it. So thank you for that. That's today's Good Advice. We'll catch you later. See ya.